So today's episode, and don't mind me, I'm just like burning sage. But on today's episode, today's video blog, I'm gonna recap my 2020 and maybe even share some things that I learned about myself in 2020. So I'm gonna do a quick recap of the year. At least try to recap 365 days into a 5-10 minute video. See how that goes. So at the start of the new year, I was actually, to be honest, I probably had COVID. I definitely had like flu-like symptoms. I was out. I had actually missed a tournament. I was coaching for Pine Manor. So rewind. Started 2020, coaching at Pine Manor College. Was a lifeguard at the YMCA, and also Lifetime Fitness. So pretty much I was working anywhere between 60 to 70 hours a week. And at the start of 2020, that's when I started getting my first couple clients as far as basketball training goes. I had the gym space at Pine Manor College, so that's where I was training out of on weekends mainly. And then from there, January, February, I went from 1 to 2 clients to like 10 to 15. So it started to really grow slowly but surely. I started to get one after another. I was training out of YMCA's. Actually, funny story about that. I actually got, as an employee of the YMCA, I got banned from a YMCA for training somebody at a YMCA who was a YMCA member, if that makes sense. But anywho, as we progress, we get into March. At this time, I guess leading up into the new year, into 2020, I was studying to get my personal training certification because I was looking for another job that I could get where I could use, the skills that I would actually want to work long term with. So I was personal training. We were looking at physical fitness, being able to move the body in a certain way as it applies to basketball. So that's kind of what I was thinking. So at Lifetime Fitness, I'm studying on my breaks. I'm writing down notes, all types of trying to game plan on how I can grow the business, how I can get new clients. And then mid-March comes, I take my personal training test, pass it. I actually got a job at Boston Sports Club. I worked one day, which was a training day where they just onboarded me, all the paperwork. Then the very next day, they shut down because of Corona. Obviously, the impacts as we're still but going through this whole pandemic thing right now. But so going into March or late March, early April, I was kind of at a standstill. And for those who've been kind of keeping up with me, I've had this idea of starting my own app for a long time. I had kind of the framework or the idea of how I wanted to do it, but didn't really have the time to. So that whole quarantine part 1, when we were in April, that's what I was doing, learning information on sales funnels and how to grow my following and how to really create an online revenue stream. But also that March and April, I learned a lot about myself as far as just spiritually. I did a lot of meditation, I did a lot of yoga, and I did a lot of hiking. Shout out to my guy Wes. We went on a lot of New England trips. Oh my goodness, a lot of New England. We went to Western New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, all for waterfalls. Some dope waterfalls too. I learned how much I really love nature in that time. So as we get into March, April, I decided to go on a little road trip. It's like, why not? And I went home to see some fam for a little bit, kind of touch base, see what was going on there. Definitely grew in my relationships with my family, especially. We weren't able to travel as much. I'll get into that later in the year in 2020, but so here we are, April, May. Things are starting to open up. It's starting to get nicer outside, and I hit the ground running with the basketball training. I mean, I was already training people, April as it started to get warm little by little, taking the precautionary measures. That was when they initiated the whole social distancing and mask and things like that. So rules that I'm still following to this day, but started training, and amidst the pandemic, business started to really take off. Like, to kind of put it in perspective, for the basketball training business, from January up until, we'll say, the end of 2020, in that 12-month span, I went from 5 to 10 clients to now I have 85 to 100 contacts or clients that I've been training. So blessed to see that growth. Then I actually kind of skipped over this whole. I'm jumping all over the place, but at the beginning of 2020, I actually, for the first time, went out for a little bit, and on this night out, actually, I met my current girlfriend. We're still together. It's going on close to a year, to be a year in March. That's when we officially started dating. Got a relationship in the middle of a pandemic. Sounds very unorthodox, but I'm an unorthodox person. So, but anywho, as we continue, so summer 2020, May, June, July, grinding my butt off. We get into August, and that's when I decided to go on a couple different trips. The first one was decided to drive to Gatlinburg with my family. So my mother's boyfriend, my little brother, his friend, did some hiking with them, and that was their first time hiking and seeing a waterfall. So being able to see them go through that experience was cool. That was dope. Jumped off a cliff for my birthday, August 7th. That was dope. Into a water, something I've always wanted to do when I was hiking in the New England area. But I was always scared to do it. Water was cold, and I don't know, I just had that fear. But that day, I just kind of overcame my fear. And then it was that day that I started to really change my habits. I got hip to that 75 hard challenge, which is 2 workouts a day, reading 10 pages a day, eating on a diet, drinking a gallon of water every day. And that really helped me solidify a lot of habits that helped me make the transformation physically that I wanted to make this year. So as we keep going through the year, a little bit later in August, me and my girlfriend actually took a trip to Albany, New York, around there, to do just a little getaway, a little mini weekend getaway. It was once again for my birthday. So literally, as soon as I got back from Gatlinburg, I think it might have been maybe one day, me and her took off and got away for the weekend. So that was cool. And then actually later that month, we actually ended up taking a little road trip, end of August, early September. We went to Philadelphia for a couple days, and then went to DC to actually join in on the March on Washington for the whole Black Lives Matter movement. And that was a cool experience to see, honestly, just because it kind of reminded me of, back in the 60s when MLK did his whole speech on Washington. And, back then, the imagery that we get, it was just a bunch of black people there. But just like this rally, and just like back then, blacks, whites, Latin, everybody there just for a unified cause. And I thought that was cool. During the pandemic, it was kind of weird because everybody was kind of spaced out and masked up. At least we were masked up. There were some people who weren't, but it's another story for another day. But that was a cool experience. Then we get back here in the fall, and all the schools are virtual, so kids are really yearning for the skills training. So really busy. Learned a lot about how to really manage and grow my business. Started to hire employees, bring on coaches, and then going into the end of 2020. Really setting a game plan for, I made this exponential growth pretty much out of nowhere, air quote, out of nowhere. Y'all know how they say an overnight success. Some people might call it that, but for those who do know me, they know I've been a student of the game for years and years and years. So I wouldn't say it's an overnight success, but after having this short-term success, I kind of just keep thinking okay, how can I make this into a long-term thing, right? I had to shift my mindset from like, this is just a hustle to, okay, this is a business. How can I continue to build this business so it withstands the test of time? So a couple things that I've learned about myself in this year is I'm not as disciplined as I thought I was. I'm disciplined when it comes to certain things as far as working out, eating right, taking care of my body, but I'm not disciplined in doing the little things. I mentioned that 75 hard challenge. One of the things you had to do is take a progress pic, and I had to start that challenge over so many times just because I was forgetting to take a progress pic. Literally something that takes about 15 seconds I kept on forgetting to do, and I'm noticing in my business, it's not the big things that are holding me back from that success, it's the little things. So paying attention to those little things. I'd say that's probably like the biggest thing I've learned in 2020 is just the little things. Like, it's not, it's when you let your emotions get take control, and you might respond to a situation a certain way and might regret those words that you may have said. Not like you were being rude or disrespectful, but maybe you didn't convey the message in the way you wanted to because internally you were feeling some type of way. So another big thing, and this might be the biggest thing, honestly, I've become got closer to God in my spirituality. A lot more meditation, a lot more Bible reading, a lot more stillness, and really searching for that clarity. And that's been a journey, and that's going to be a consistent journey. I mean, sometimes I have to remind myself, like, my God, you're only 28 years old. Like, you don't have to be this, know-it-all, always does perfect person. I mean, I'm always striving for better, but I guess the hustler's dilemma. But yeah, that's all I got. All in all, 2020 wasn't that bad. I mean, I know, a lot of people have died this year. A lot of people are having tough times as far as living situation. I mean, I'm currently quarantining right now, because of some recent exposure in my household that's happened. But I think all in all, I think this year, if it hasn't taught us one thing, it's taught us that, at least how I see it, like, it's what you make of it. I seen a lot of people go into that quarantine when it first happened and be going the right way as far as their trajectory, and they literally did a full 180 and went back down. And I've seen people do the opposite. They really use that time to search within themselves, figure out what they really want, and start going towards it. So it's not about the environment that's around you, it's about what you're doing in that environment that's going to determine your outcome. But that's my 2020 review, my 2020 wrap up. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I have more blog series if y'all want me to break anything down. And please, if y'all haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, Beast Podcast. Just search B.E. and it'll pop up. Beast Podcast, bringing empowerment skills together. And if you want to be a guest on the show, leave a comment, send me a message or something. Let's get it popping. All right, y'all. Peace.